I'm Austin. I go by AV on social media. I'm a photographer. I grew up in Massachusetts, but I'm based in Jersey now. And for the last couple of years, I've been traveling the States, just shooting photographs. I'm a full-time content creator, I guess you could say. I mean, obviously priority, the identity is photographer. I do a little bit of marketing, freelance stuff, but yeah, primarily a photographer. A lot of the recent stuff I've been doing has either been clients in the adventure space or the outdoor space, and then also work with some clients in like the photography space. So like Fujifilm or Data Color, for example, like just different companies in the photography or adjacent photography world. But I try to do a little bit of everything, and as of right now, it's really just about, you know, whatever I think, you know, I have the capacity for will fit, you know, the needs that I have on my end, and something I think I can actually do a good job at.
I'm gonna try not to swear for the first few minutes so you don't get demonetized. Oh, puffy clouds are actually pretty sick. All right, you guys wanna head in? I think the way I went last time was this way. A little taste of paradise in a troubled world. I don't know. This is weird, but there's a McDonald's up here that I actually like, just visually think is cool. It's a newer one too, which is rare for me to like a new thing, but like I don't like modern influences as much. However, this one looks cool. I'm not gonna be able to get a good photo of it, but oh dude, look at that awning. That yellow is perfect. Y'all good?
Yeah.
You know what I didn't do? Bring water.
I have some.
I have some too. Okay, I might take a swig.
Photography for me was, I guess the discovery came from really the skateboarding world. I mean, I grew up super obsessed with skateboarding, and obviously all my friends, we wanted to film the tricks we were doing and try to make videos and stuff. And so that's kind of how I got introduced to cameras themselves. And then photography came a little bit later, like strictly photography came later down the line. When I was scrolling Instagram, I saw a Nat Geo post, and it was captioned, you know, taken on a Canon Rebel T3, and that was the camera that I had at the time. It was a camera that I had got given by like a family member for Christmas or something, and right then and there I was like, damn, like if they can shoot that, you know, I think it was a Milky Way shot, like if they can shoot that Milky Way shot with this camera, like maybe I can do that, you know? So just started exploring using the camera to do long exposures, and then it just became like a rabbit hole. And so that was like 10-ish years ago when that photography section of my life started, and it's been an obsession since. Yeah, I went to school for biology. I worked in biotech for a little while, but that just wasn't really a good fit for me, and I ended up leaving that in, it was May of 2022, so two years ago, a little over 2 years ago now. Yeah, that was a wild thing to do. At the time, I didn't know that I could figure it out creatively, freelance, but it's worked out. I mean, you know, since then I've basically been full-time. When I moved to Jersey, I did have a full-time job for a short amount of time just to kind of situate myself a little bit. But once I, you know, found some clients in the area and started to get on my feet, I jumped right back into creative pursuits again full-time, so.
No, we gotta go right. I'm sorry guys, I'm a fucking idiot. We're actually getting some amazing light right now.
So I was in a creator house in Salt Lake like a year ago, and we had two Austins in the house. And so one of them was Austin Peterson, and then me. And I've had the Avdidit handle for a while. I went by Austin Visual for a while too. And so the AV component just became like my nickname, and that's kind of where that username came from. And the other side of it too is like, I'm trying to stop taking the internet too seriously. And so I wanted, when I made this Instagram account, I kind of wanted to have some sort of like gamer tag feeling username just to kind of reminisce on those times, because I was a big gamer growing up. And so that's really kind of where it came from, just kind of like a fun name. I think, I mean, I love to shoot anything. Like I think, you know, I enjoy just about even events and stuff, like a wedding is fun. Like really I just like using a camera, but I definitely feel like the main things that I'm interested are definitely traditional landscapes. I enjoy that niche of man-altered landscapes, new topographics, street photography, cityscapes, so a little bit of everything, but generally those kind of areas. I think if I had to describe my work, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily know what to call it. It's definitely still pretty generalized. Like I shoot a lot of different things. I've gone to a lot of places in the US, but in general, I like to take a photo or create like an image that represents my visit to a place, but maybe isn't necessarily always the best representation of what it actually looks like. So I might visit, you know, a place 4, 5, 6 times, get the same shot, but different conditions, and then pick from that pile. So it's not always as literal, I guess. It is interpretive in some way.
Oh, dude, this is insane. 2 cars? That's fucking crazy. This is a really good scene. Oh, dude, the birds. Oh, bro. Yeah, it's cool. Fun little scene. I absolutely love this camera. What a cool scene, right?
I think the main characteristic, at least the feedback that I'm getting, the main characteristic that sort of stands out about my work, or at least like pops out to a lot of people, is definitely the color that I'm pulling from a lot of images and just the editing style overall. A lot of stuff I'm doing in camera, the actual photos themselves are also, I'm kind of leaning on some personal techniques, but at the end of the day, I think that my editing style is probably like the bigger thing that differentiates the work from a lot of other people visiting similar spots. And then, yeah, just in general, like the tonality overall, I really enjoy, introducing textures, like almost like grain overlays or like that sort of thing. I don't try to take it too seriously. I don't need the photos to be so literal. I like to kind of have fun with it and just kind of feel it out when I'm editing. So in terms of like what inspires me, there's 2 kind of main areas. I'm really inspired by painters. So like a lot of the Impressionist painters, a lot of the, like Edward Hopper's a big one for me, Vincent van Gogh. I just enjoy the colors in their work and the ambiance of their other paintings. It's beautiful. But outside of that, I mean, with photographers from like a literal sense, who inspires me, I mean, there's a lot of people, both like new age and kind of contemporary people, obviously, but in terms of like the greats, I would say it's really like any photographer that takes a photo that, to me, when you look at the photo, you could kind of enter the photo in any area and it would still be a good image. You're not necessarily tied to, you know, an event in the photo or a central subject, but maybe it's a spread of beautiful subjects. Maybe there's multiple things going on. And so if a photographer has a theme like that prevalent in their work, that's something that I really latch onto pretty quickly. And so like right off the bat, it'd be Joel Meyerowitz. I see a lot of that in his work. I mean, he has New York frames where if you split it in half, it could be 2 beautiful photos. Like there's just so much amazing stuff going on. Gregory Girard's a huge inspiration to me. Gary Winogrand. I mean, there's so many like basic ones. Todd Heido is another big one. It really comes down to like, I latch onto the visual impact of a photo more than anything else. Anything that hits me that, you know, in that way, that's the stuff that's gonna inspire me. A lot of times I'll go to a scene and I'll take multiple versions of it. I might revisit that scene multiple times. And I do this now where I'm living, and I've done that out west on trips. I've, you know, carved out a whole day to visit one spot multiple times just to make sure I got what I wanted. I think if I had to pick a favorite, I really love harsh daylight for sure. I think that the way that I've been able to pull color out of those scenes is one of the things that I think stands out about a lot of the images I've gotten. A lot of people ask me like, why do I shoot in harsh light? Why do I edit that way? And I just enjoy the look, and there's something about how much color you can pull out of that, you know, lighting. That said, I'm really a big fan of any conditions that, at the end of the day, it comes down to the scene. And so like some scenes look better in daylight, some scenes look better at night. Just comes down to, you know, what is that scene? But in general, if I had to pick one, I would definitely go with, you know, harsh daylight, those beautiful blue skies for sure.
I pinned something down here, so I'm gonna go check it out. Yeah, so like when I'm walking through the city, if I'm driving, I'll just pull over, pin stuff if I see it, and I have like a crazy map throughout New York City and obviously like other places because I've traveled a bit, but my pins here are probably the most concentrated. So I have one on my map right now that I want to see, but it's good because you can, you know, if you see something but you're not seeing it at the right time or you don't have time to shoot it, you should still pin it because you might be able to come back.
Look, there's another covered car.
Oh yeah, that is nice. Oh, it's in good light too. I'll check it out. I feel like people hate on shooting cars, but especially in a new neighborhood for me where like it's kind of slow. Right now, it's the only thing I'm seeing that I like, you know, feel connected to. That color is beautiful. Ah. This is why I don't shoot fucking film, dude.
Yeah, leaning into street has been terrifying for sure. I think I've been there for 8 or 9 months now. And so I've been shooting it 4 to 5 days a week for that period of time. And it's been really scary, but I think after all that effort, I am finally in a position where, you know, the fear to take intimate photos or the fear to take beautiful images that, you know, just kind of flow with what people are doing on the street. That fear is finally starting to break down, and I feel like I'm actually getting images now finally that I'm starting to like a little bit more. I mean, just in general, it's a really weird transition because obviously I went from shooting like inanimate objects primarily for a long time. I mean, I was almost never shooting people unless it was for some sort of client event or a portrait shoot or something. And then you go from that to what I'm doing right now, which is almost only candid moments on the street. And it was a really hard transition to make. I kind of mixed some cityscape stuff into that and some side missions to like areas in the Northeast. But that was really only just so that I could kind of, I don't know, just ease myself into the street photography stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's been a really wild transition. It's really exciting. Obviously now I'm starting to actually enjoy New York, whereas when I was first there, I was really uninspired, to be honest. And so I'm starting to feel a little bit better about being here. But I think leaning into street has been a big challenge, but I'm excited to see, you know, a couple of years from now what that looks like in my work. Like maybe it will be a beautiful transformation and maybe not. Maybe it'll just be like a weird chapter for me where it was just an exploration, and that's fine too. I mean, I've had, you know, I've been doing this for 10 years, so I've had a bunch of those too. So I have a lot of street work that has been sitting on hard drives fully edited, and I haven't shared it because I'm trying to figure out how it can possibly integrate into the bigger picture of my body of work. The way I look at my photography ultimately, I think, is that I want to continue just visiting new places and hopefully spending longer periods of time in some areas. And so maybe I'll build kind of smaller bodies of work in a location that I live for a little while, and then road trip bodies of work. And so just a bunch of different stuff. And I want it to all have some consistency. But for some reason, with particularly street, out of any other genre I've integrated into, or any other location or region or whatever, street has been the hardest thing for me to integrate into the rest of my body of work and see no seams. I mean, it just seems so night and day different. And so yeah, I've been struggling with that. On social media exacerbates it because obviously you post photos and on your feed, basically right off the bat, you just see it all together. And it's like, if it doesn't go, it doesn't go. It doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. And sometimes like committing to a post that might seem like it doesn't fit well can be a little tough, but I'm trying really hard in this year to not allow what social media says is good or what my followers say is good to dictate what I share. I want to still be sharing the stuff that I'm proud of, the stuff that I've been making, the stuff that I think is good or, you know, interesting or whatever. So yeah, I think to answer that, I think in general, I do think social media brings a bit of fear for not just me. Other people complain about this idea too, where they're afraid to, they might be a photographer of landscapes and they go to a city and they're afraid to share that trip on their feed because it doesn't match, you know? So I know that feeling all too well because I'm always all over the place, but I'm slowly getting over it because I am sharing some of it, you know? So it's slow, I'm slowly getting there.
Oh, dude, that's beautiful.
Oops, sorry.
No, you're okay. Dude, this is insane. All right, I need to be like back there, to be honest. I think I fucked up that fucking trash can, to be honest, bro. But that's okay. Can we go on this thing? This is just a cool spot. I'm never gonna come back to this, so I just wanna like cover it nicely. Thankfully, we're getting great conditions at the moment, so. XT3 is top tier, even though it's not anymore, but it's good, you know, does the job. Oh, sorry.
In general, my take is that you can definitely rest a lot of meaning on aesthetic and output. And that's a rare opinion, but I look at like work from someone such as like Jackson Pollock, abstract painter. There's no literal meaning to his work, at least not that I'm aware of. You could obviously imply subjective meaning. He could imply his own meaning. You know, we could all sit there and tell each other what we think it means, but at the end of the day, it's not really that literal, and yet it's still kind of beautiful. And there's something about photography where I think it has the same potential to, I guess, communicate like an abstract or a subjective meaning while still focusing on a literal subject. I think it's one of the only mediums that can do that. I think painting can obviously do that as well. That being said, I think that there are a lot of photographers that, if I'm just being honest, apply a little bit more meaning to something they're doing than is actually there. And my take on it a lot of times is that that gets lost to me. Like if I'm viewing a body of work and they impose a meaning on it that I just can't see in the images, to me, it feels a little bit like forced or overdone. And so as a photographer myself, and as I venture into street photography, my focus is gonna be primarily on the output itself. Do I feel something when I look at this image? That's pretty much my metric, and I'm not really worried about building a body of work with meaning or whatever that would even entail. Down the line, if I have thousands of images that I've shot that might be shareable, that's the point where I would sit down and say, like, is there a string through this project now that actually says something? And if there isn't, then maybe I wasted my time, or maybe it doesn't matter. I mean, maybe I can still put a book together of beautiful pictures. Any genre, not just street photography. I don't necessarily know that any photographs require a meaning to matter or to be respected. Like if you told me that, again, like one of my favorites, like Gregory Girard, he has a couple bodies of work that he photographed places that were largely unseen, in, like, so Hong Kong, for example. Like he has some of the best work in Hong Kong. It was very original. Obviously, nowadays, like you can go back and see it. Same thing with Joel Meyerowitz on the Cape. Like, I don't think there really was like anything that subjectively meaningful, except for, I mean, he just had a personal connection to the place. He just wanted to see it. He went with his kids, you know. What I'm trying to say, I guess, is that you can apply meaning if you want to, but I think you got to be careful how much meaning you apply to your work. I think you got to allow people to interpret it themselves. It's okay if your work doesn't fully speak for itself. I think you can attach some meaning, but like I said, I think that some photographers or some people in the art world will take work that maybe was just made because the process was interesting or beautiful. It wasn't necessarily about some sort of meaning at the end of the day, and then they'll apply some sort of overarching meaning, and it just, to me, it feels like it would have been better if you just left the work to say what it wanted to say. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be some grandiose message all the time. I don't know. If I could provide one piece of advice to a new photographer, I think it would be to seek mentorship and network your way into a good circle that can give you good feedback. That was the best thing that ever happened in my photography. So if your goal with photography is to get better at photography, the tip would be, yeah, surround yourself with people that are better than you, and then ask them why you're not better. That, to me at least, was the advice I never got that I figured out over 10 years, where if you can get that done in year 1, you'll be better than me by year 5, you know, or year 3, you know? So that would be my tip. Just surround yourself with people that you respect and ask for their feedback, and let them be honest, let them rip you apart, because it'll make your work so much better. Yeah, the first photo, I mean, no major story behind it. It was one of the, I had moved to Salt Lake, and that was right around when the weather, so I moved there in like right before the winter. So I just got like blasted by winter. And so that photo was shot like right around when the seasons were starting to change. It was starting to actually get kind of nice out. And so I went down to southern Utah. That was taken in, oh, I forget the town, Green River. Green River, Utah, I think is the town. One of the first photos that I think it was pivotal in the sense that it just, the colors, the tones, the textures of the photo are very much like my style, I think. And it was one of those earlier photos where I started pursuing that style and people liked it and I got good feedback on it. And so for me, that was just pivotal, and I just enjoyed that scene a lot. So I grew up in Massachusetts. I think I mentioned that earlier, but the photo of the Paramount, that was a really wild night. This was like, I think this was like 2022. Was it 2022? Is it okay? Yeah, so 2022. This was probably the last time the East Coast got like a really bad snowstorm. I mean, most of the years since then have really not been that bad at all. So yeah, that was a crazy blizzard. I basically just took a train into the city, got stuck there like basically overnight because I don't think they kept running the trains for me to get home. And so I just walked around for like hours and hours and hours with a camera, and the snow on the main roads was deep enough that my feet were getting stuck. Like, it was pretty bad. And you can even see in that photo, the snowbanks are crazy high on the sides. Like, they're half the body height of that pedestrian, I imagine. And so it's like, yeah, I saw that guy walking through. And so for me, it was just one of those moments where I knew I was like, I'm never gonna get a unique photo of this scene that everyone photographs, everyone goes there and sees it. And so it was kind of like my one chance to get something different. And I'm sure some other people were out that night and I'm sure they got to shoot something like it. But yeah, that was one of the best images I ever got in Massachusetts. And so I'm super stoked on that photo. And I look back on it sometimes and I miss snow just because it was so crazy. I went on a trip this was right when I moved to Jersey, like 8 or so months ago.
December.
Yeah, okay, and so it was a couple months in. And yeah, that one's basically, I've been really fascinated with still life in restaurants, which obviously is like a trope in the film photography community. Everybody's like, oh yeah, another mustard container on film, but I really actually appreciate them a lot. And on the note of not allowing social media to dictate what I do, I don't really care if people think it's corny to shoot still life. And so I enjoy it a lot, but I just feel like that stuff, to me, it's kind of like people, where every person's kind of unique and they have a fingerprint and they have a different face and a different, structure and everything. That's how I look at these restaurants with their interiors. Like, if you look at the way that a restaurant sets for service, the way they lay their plates out, the type of plates, the type of silverware, how they wrap their napkins, if they do that at all, if they have napkins on a container. Obviously a jukebox in this case is a really cool thing and not something we see a lot of anymore. But just in general, I look at these as little fingerprints. And so every time I go to dinner or breakfast or lunch or whatever with friends and I see something interesting on a table, I try to grab a photo of it. And so that was literally just that. I was on a trip with just my friend David, and we were just exploring Atlantic City late one night, and we went to grab some food, and we walked in there and just happened to have jukeboxes all over the place, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. So thought it was a cool little scene.